Python intro today. Let's get over here to the fundamentals here. We're just going to talk about some basic things that you guys are going to be doing here in Python. And the first thing that the platform, or one of the first things the platform goes over, is just how to print a string in Python. So this is a pretty critical thing actually in any of the languages that you guys are going to be working with, because oftentimes we think we know what data a variable holds, but we might be wrong about that. So this is a very useful way to just print something out to your terminal, make sure that you've got everything right. So very simple in Python, print. That's it, right? Versus in JavaScript, anyone know what we do in JavaScript? Console.log. Yes, exactly. So if we're concatenating strings, there are some different ways to do that as far as within a print call. I can either choose to print multiple things. So in this case, if we have name equals Zen, and we print my name is, we can also pass in the name variable so that we'll print both of those things. The second is by actually concatenating with the plus sign, so we can just tack them together with that plus sign. Let me open up a Python shell so you guys can see this. So new window here. Second here. I'm a big fan of using the VS Code terminal, so if you guys don't use it, I would highly recommend starting, because a lot of your projects you're going to have, you're going to be running a server, and you can also have a terminal window down below while you're running that server to just see what's happening.
So is running the VS terminal, how is that, that's not with the regular terminal that's found like on our.
But it acts the same way though.
It does.
Yeah, so for me, when I'm running stuff, I like to keep it all sort of in the same place. So I don't need to have another terminal window here, another terminal here. And you can also have multiple tabs too. There's this little plus symbol here. Not sure how well you can see that. It is the VS Code you have installed. Yeah, so to open it up, you just press Control and then the backtick. I don't know. You'd have to look that up. I haven't messed with Atom in a really... Actually, Tanner, you would know because you use Atom, right?
Yeah, they have like some plugins, but I haven't found one that's not super
Okay. Okay. But otherwise, no integrated terminal, though?
No.
Okay.
Ronnie actually put me on to Visual Code. There's a Python extension that gives you gives you the syntax errors and things like that. So you don't have to because I was having trouble if I uploaded to the terminal, it was telling me it's wrong, and it doesn't really tell you where and stuff.
Okay.
Online. So it's helped me out a lot. It'll actually just like it did in Java, it'll highlight where you're.
So it's giving you linting.
Yeah.
Python for VS Code. I think I've got this one, linting debugging. It's just the Python extension. Yeah. Okay, cool. So let's just do a quick example here of printing. So let's get our shell going. So if we go Python 3, that opens up a shell for us, and then we can just say, we'll just create some variable, right? Name. Oh, sorry. Every time I try to make this bigger, it takes forever for some reason. And now I can't type. Oh, here we go. Alright, so we'll just say name, and then I'll just set that equal to my name. Okay. And now if we want to print those things together like we had in the example here, we can say print, and then my name is, comma, and then name, like that. Okay. So that's one way to concatenate them, and you'll see it actually added a space in between them for me. It's made it kind of nice. Or I can do print, my name is, and then just do plus, like that. Same exact thing. So that's pretty simple. Cool. Let me make that go away there. All right, let's see if there's anything else we want to look at here. There are these things called F strings, which were introduced in Python 3.6, and that enables us to actually do string interpolation in between these curly braces here. So this is kind of nice. Let's try that. So if we say print, and then instead of just the string, we go F, and then my name is, and then I could just put in the curly braces, I could put name, and this should actually be replaced for me. Right? So you'll have to make sure that you have a Python version of 3.6 and beyond to use F strings. Otherwise, you'll get an error on that.
Would you recommend using F strings over the other one?
I'm kind of fond of them. It helps in certain situations. If we have let's say we had an integer, an actual integer that we were trying to put inside of a string, you can do that with F strings, but we won't be able to do that with string concatenation. So let's kind of take an example of that. So let's say, I'll just say integer equals 5, and then let's do print. We'll say my number is, and then I'm going to try to concatenate this to my integer. Okay, notice how I get an, oh yeah, I spelled it wrong, sorry about that. Integer. Alright, so notice how we get a type error, can only concatenate string, not int to string. Now there is a way around that, so I can cast the integer as a string by just invoking the str method like this, and that would work. But if I want to do it with an F string, it would be probably even nicer. I could just say F, my number is, and then we'll just put it right in there. So there we go. So the F string just means, by using the F string, we actually don't have to change the type. Makes it a little bit nicer. All right.
The shell, the Python shell,
Yeah. What about it?
would that be better?
Would what be better? I'm not. What was the question?
The Python shell?
Better than what?
The VS?
Well, I'm using a Python shell within the VS Code terminal. Okay, so that's all I'm doing. And eventually you guys aren't going to be running programs from the Python shell, but I just opened up a shell so that we could kind of like run through some of these examples. That's all. All right, so let's keep going here. Here's percent formatting. You guys can also do things this way. That's an even older method though, so I don't think I'm going to go over that. You'd probably be good with concatenation and F strings. Here are some built-in string methods. If we use the title method, we can actually capitalize each letter, or the first letter of each word. So again, if I go print, and we'll say hello world, and then I call the .title method, it will actually capitalize the first letter of each word. Kind of nice. Nothing major. I don't think you guys are going to be like using that all over the place, but it is there. All right, and then there's some other methods here that you'll find here. .upper would actually make all of the letters in the string uppercase. Say it again.
We use that today.
Oh, you did. Oh, okay, cool. And then .find, you can also find a substring within the string that you're looking at, so that's kind of nice. Notice that it returns the index of the start of the first occurrence of the substring within the string. Then there's some other guys. Is alpha, is digit, is lower, is upper, and so on. So the key thing about this is that you don't necessarily need to know all of these, because oftentimes what happens as you're programming and you're working through things, you're going to need to look things up anyway. So trying to memorize a whole list of methods like this is going to be generally detrimental. However, as you continue to use something again and again, you'll notice that, oh, I just remember this automatically because I've used it, 5 minutes ago or something like that. So it'll happen, some memorization, but don't try to force yourself to memorize a bunch of methods. That wouldn't be in your best interest.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
So when you're initiating the use of your terminal and then you want to run Python, before you have to do that, do you have to activate the virtual environment first? And
Only if you're needing to use things in that virtual environment.
The
So-
packages you downloaded with.
Yeah, so for right now, I'm just going through these basic examples, and we're not actually using any external libraries.
okay,
So
when-
yeah, I didn't need to activate my
Okay,
my
because I think I was
environment.
getting confused when I was trying to do the first couple exercises of like the for loop basic one, functions basic one. We don't have to initiate a virtual environment to
Nope.
complete those. We just use the terminal, activate Python, and then use it as a shell.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. All right. So that was printing strings. Let's glance at the syntax real quick. Indentation and line endings. So here's a key thing to know. We do not need semicolons at the end of lines. So that's kind of nice. The other thing that's really important is indentation in Python. So you may find that sometimes you'll run into errors because of indentation problems. So it enforces some strict indentation on us. What is a code block? A code block is a set of lines of code that belong together. So here's an example. If we were running an if statement, we would actually want the following lines that belong inside that if statement to be indented over at least one level from where we started. Okay, so let's just do a quick example of that. So let's say if 1 equals 1, and then I need to actually indent, so let's tab over and we'll say print it did. Okay, and now let's see what happens if I don't do that. So if I don't indent, if I go if 1 equals 1, and then I don't indent and I just try to print something, what's going to happen now? See, so now we have an indentation error because this we started up that if block, but we actually have nothing within it at all. There's nothing inside that if block. All right, so that's the kind of indentation error you might see while you guys are working on things. Here are some different types of conditional statements, and actually we'll cover those shortly. Here's an example of how that indentation should look. Notice how we've got our print statements indented one level inside the if and the else. Also, pass is kind of important because sometimes when you're writing something, you may just want to kind of put in a placeholder because you know you're going to come back to that thing. And if you do not put pass inside of that, you're going to get some kind of an indentation error. So again, if we're back in our terminal here and we said class some class, oops, and I just didn't do anything in there, notice how it gets angry at me. But if I say some class and then I indent and I just put pass, I'm okay. So that's just a placeholder that you can drop in there if you know that you're going to come back to something.
This is a question.
Yeah, sure.
I noticed you said that you have to use semicolons, and I've got all that, how it uses the indentation, and I noticed also you guys use the double dot. I'm sorry, what is the whatever name?
Oh, that's called a colon.
Yeah, do you have to use those? Like
For a class, yeah. If I'm introducing a class, I need to put a colon over it.
Yeah.
All right. So let's keep moving here. Data types. Close this out here. So here are some of the primitive data types. Okay, these are the basic building blocks of a language. So we've got Boolean values, which are either true and false. This might take a little bit of getting used to for you guys because you're probably used to some JavaScript by now. We actually capitalize them in Python. All right. We have numbers. You guys are probably used to working with those. If it's a decimal, that would be a float. Strings. You guys, I'm sure, are very used to using strings by now, so we have those in Python as well. And then we have composite types. All right, these are the ones that you're probably going to be using quite a bit. Probably not so much tuples, but basically what a tuple is you can kind of think of it like an array that cannot be modified. So once it's been created, it is immutable. All right. If you create a tuple, in fact, let's do that and let's just demonstrate what would happen if you try to change something in there. So if I say my tuple equals some tuple that has 1, 2, and 3 in it. Whoops. I don't know why I threw that in there. Okay. So now let's try to change something. So we'll say my tuple at the index of 0 equals 5. Whoop. Why do I keep... You guys got to catch my typos. Sorry. All right. So tuple object does not support item assignment. So again, it's immutable once it's been created. You can't touch it. All right. Versus, we also have a list type, which is essentially exactly like what you guys are familiar with from JavaScript. Okay. So this enables us to create a quote array in Python. And they could be mixed. There could be mixed types in that array. Let's just create one, for example. So we'll say my array, or let's call it a list because I want to be proper since we're doing Python. All right, and we'll say the first item is first item, second item is 5. There we go. So if I want to get the first or the second item of the list, how would I access that? By index. All right. So that'll give me 5. Cool. Just exactly like what you're used to from JavaScript. So that shouldn't be anything new. The other thing that we're going to have to work with are these things called dictionaries, and this is analogous to a JavaScript object. Okay. So a dictionary is just a group of key value pairs. And if I want to create one, I'll go back here in the terminal here, and we'll just say my dict, and we'll open it up with curly braces, and then our key names actually need to be quoted here. So we can say first key, and then we'll say first val. All right, and then if I actually want to see that, I should be able to do print my dict, and there we go. We have our dictionary that has first key and first val. There are also some other ways to, well, let's keep moving here. We can pop an element, pop from the dictionary. So if we want to remove a specific key, we could do it using the pop method. So let's try that. So we'll just say my dict dot pop, and then I'm going to put in the name of the key. So it's first key. And then, so you'll notice it actually gave us back the value. And now if I print my dict, that key should be gone, right? So now our dictionary has been emptied out because that was the only key value pair that was in there. All right. Here are some common functions that we may need to use. We may want to figure out what the type of something is, and we can just call the type function. So let's say type 5 gives us class int, or if I say type some string, gives me class string, so it actually tells me what type I'm dealing with. Also, length is pretty important. So this would tell us how long a particular string is, or in the case of if we're just trying to find out how many keys there are in a particular dictionary, we can use the length function or the len function. So let's call len against my dict. What should we expect to get here? 0, right? Because I emptied it out. Good. All right. Or if I go with my list, how many items were in my list? Okay, so if I do len against my list, I would expect to get 2, right? My list, 2. Good. All right, let's keep going. Typecasting and explicit conversion. We kind of talked about that briefly. Is this off? There it is. Okay. But sometimes we may actually want to convert a type to some other type. So if we had hello plus 42, again, that throws an error. But if we invoke the string function to convert to basically typecast that to a string, we'll be able to do that properly. All right. Let's keep moving here. Functions, or I'm sorry, conditionals. You guys are very familiar with conditionals from JavaScript, I'm sure. Here what we can do is when we open up one of these if blocks, rather than surrounding our condition with parentheses and then opening it up with a curly brace like we do in JavaScript, we actually open it up with a colon in Python. Right? So the syntax is just slightly different, but really the principle behind it is the same. Python also has elif. You guys know what that means? Understand what that means? Else if, right? Yeah, not too bad. It has else, just like JavaScript, so that's the same. And then down here we've got some comparison and logic operators. So these are just things where we're checking to see if 2 operands are equal. That would be the double equal sign. We do not have triple equals like we do in JavaScript. Not sure how familiar you guys were with that. The exclamation point followed by an equal sign just means checks if they're not equal. We got greater than, less than, greater than or equal, less than or equal. And then this is slightly different than JavaScript as well. So in JavaScript, we would use the double ampersand to do and. Here we would just use the word and. So it flows very much like English, or not. So the syntax is pretty nice, pretty friendly, especially for you guys that are starting out, like maybe haven't done any programming before. It'll flow pretty well. All right, let's keep going. Loops, you guys have seen in JavaScript. All right, if we want to loop inside of a range, there's some difference in syntax here that we have. So rather than this type of syntax where we have our initializing condition over here and our while condition and then what happens after each time, here what we can do is we can use this range function to actually create a range of values that we want to iterate through. Okay? So for x in range from 0 to 10, and this would be an interval, so how far we want to go each time. Yeah, we want to go up by 1.
So you want to run a backwards for you, like backwards being like x is equal to 0, x is greater, running for x is greater than 10, x minus 1. Would you just do for x in range 0 to 10 minus 1? Does it know to run forward backwards at that point? Or would you have to do 10?
I don't believe that would work.
No, you gotta start.
No, I don't think so.
Because you see what I'm saying, like what if I wanted to count down?
Yes.
You do 10 comes
But actually, I'm pretty sure I made it work. I counted down when I went to, I typed in, do it really quick.
So -1, you're saying?
Yeah, so I've done, like, I had a function named Bob. I just named it random. And Bob was I.
So this didn't print anything. Did you reverse it? You had like 10, 0. Is that what you mean in the range?
I in range I 0 to -1 meant I and it counted down. Maybe I just I'm calling it wrong.
For I in range I?
Yeah, I named my function I. My function was like def Bob I. I just named that was I was the placeholder in my function. If that makes sense.
Okay. Whoa. Yeah.
And they're
Why?
called,
Why would I be inside your range? All right. Tell you what. Matter most to me what you had,
yeah, I'll get
so
with
I
you.
can look at it. Yeah. In the meantime, maybe we'll briefly talk about it later on. But yeah, let's just do an example here. So let's say we want to do for I in range. We'll go from 0 to 10. And then let's change the interval to 2. Okay, and then each time all we want to do is we want to just print I. Okay, so notice how the end of our range was actually not included. So that second argument in the function range will be excluded.
So if you wanted it to be included, you would have to print all three separately.
Well, what you could do is you could change the top of your range. So instead of 10, we could do 11, right? Yeah.
Is there any place where like less than or equal to?
If we're doing a range like this,
Yeah. So there's the right time to do it in JavaScript?
well, there are while loops. Is that kind of what you're talking about? Doing like a while condition?
Oh.
Yeah. So we could do that, and we'll get to that in here too. Well, this is the way that you would run a for loop in Python, like that. So the syntax is just a little bit different. Yeah. All right. So let's keep going here. I think while loops are covered maybe down here. All right. So the range it mentions here the range function comes with a few shortcuts. We can include anywhere from 1 to 3 arguments. So if we include only one argument, that means that it's gonna start at 0. It's just implied. Okay. If we include 2 arguments, then it will start at 0 and again exclude 10. Or if we include the third argument, that just tells how many times, how far are we going in each iteration. All right. Note that if you need to specify an increment other than +1, all 3 arguments are required. Oh, what's this example here? So yeah, we could do a backwards range. Is this what you were talking about?
Yeah.
5 to 1 and -3.
Like so on mine, what it done is I done the range of I 0 minus 1, so it just whatever my I is, say I is 5, it's just gonna count down all the way to 0. But I didn't think that wouldn't always work because what if the number was below whatever I put in the second part of the range? It wouldn't work.
There we go. So again, notice how the second part of the range was excluded when we went down that list, right?
So could you make that -1 and then it would include 0?
Yeah.
If you went
It
like
would count-
5.
it would
This
count.
one -1?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you can do that.
But there would be no way to do it. Sorry, this is getting like off path. But would there be a way to do it? Because like in JavaScript, you can run it where like so no matter what the number is, so like you kind of have to know. What am I trying to say? You kind of have to know I isn't going to be smaller than 0. Because say I was just trying to make a function that always counted down, for whatever I was. You couldn't really do that because like what if I was -5, then it wouldn't count down. It would just be invalid then, right?
It sounds to me like you're talking about a situation where you'd probably want to run a while loop, no?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Like if you're actually changing I inside your code block.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So we want to use a while loop for that. Okay. Let's keep going here. For loops through list. For loops through list is quite nice in Python. I think you guys will like this. So we had a list already. Let's just iterate through it real quick. So I can say for item in my list, and then I can just print the item itself. Okay, so that printed out both items that were in the list. The other way that we can do it is we could say for I in range, and we would use the length of my list. Okay, and then what we would do is we would call each element in the list using its index, because our I is giving us an index for that position in the list. So I could say print my list at I. Same thing. Okay? But the first way of doing it is what comes really in handy in Python. We'll end up using that inside of our templates quite a bit as well. So it's really friendly as far as the syntax goes. We don't even need to touch the indexes. If you do need to use the index, however, use this second way of doing things, okay? By actually iterating through the range itself, range of the length. All right. For loops through dictionaries. We can also do the same thing, which would actually give us the keys. So if we just iterate through a dictionary, and let's add something back to my dict at some key equals some val. Okay, so now we should be able to iterate through the keys in our dictionary. So we could say for key in my dict, and then we'll just print key. Okay, so that gives us the key itself. If we want the actual values, whoops, so there are some other ways to actually get the keys as well. Like this, we could do capitals dot keys, or in our case, hold on one second. Let's just print out, we'll say print my dict dot keys. That's a method, which should give us a list of the keys. What happened there? Dict keys. So it's telling us what type it is, right? So it's a list of dictionary keys. Okay? Or we can do dot values to actually iterate if we want to iterate through just the values. I can do something like this for item or for val in my dict dot values. And then again, if I just print val, it should give me the one value that I have in my dictionary. Any questions about that? Iterating through the dictionary?
I actually have a question.
Okay.
Um,
Fire away.
well, nothing specific. Can you just run that by me one more time? Sorry.
Sure. So what this is doing, values is essentially the values method is giving us back a list of values. And so by doing for val in my dict.values, I'm iterating through that list that the values method just gave me back. You know how we were going through lists by just doing for item in list, that type of syntax? So this is exactly the same, because my dict.values is giving me back a list of values. Okay. The other thing that we can do is that if we actually want the key and the value, we can iterate using the items method. Okay, so let's do that. So for key val in my dict, we'll print key and val. Oops. I didn't do that right. So actually we want to use the items method. And then again, print key val. Okay? Because we would use items when we want to actually have access to both the key and the value. Okay? If we use dot values, that would only give us access to the values. Dot keys would only give us access to the keys.
And the value is this part, the second part, right? Is the key is like this part of the values.
To the right of the colon. Yeah, the value is to the right of the colon. The key is going to be to the left of the colon. All right. Good. All right. We've got while loops in here, like we talked about here. We could say, so let's just do something like this. We'll say count equals 0, and then we'll say while count is less than 5. Let's print count, And then we need to do something else. We need to actually increment count so that we don't just keep running this while loop indefinitely, right? We want to stop it at some point. So let's say count plus equals 1. And there we go. So while count, at some point at the very end, count actually hit 5, and that breaks us out of the while loop, right? So this is the basic expression while this. There's also an else too if we want to do something at the end of the while loop. So once the while loop has broken, we can use else. It seems to me, why would you want to do that? Why not just do your else actually after the while loop? I don't know. Can you guys think of a reason why you would want to use that syntax? No? Oh, actually, there might be a reason to do it. It's only executed if the while loop runs normally and its conditional is false. So whether we never entered the while loop or we did, but eventually the conditional changed. Okay. If instead our while loop is exited prematurely because of a break or return statement, then it would never be run.
Sounds like a perfect storm.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I can't imagine you're going to use the while else syntax that much. I didn't find myself ever needing to use it, but it is there. Loop control, we can break a loop using a break statement, and you guys have probably seen that in JavaScript as well. Well, if something has happened inside that loop that you were looking for, and you want to stop running the loop, then you can just break it prematurely. Yeah. Continue statement is also something that you could use. So if you just want to skip a specific iteration but keep looping, you can use continue. All right, so there's some examples of that. Let's keep moving here. Okay, so functions are pretty important. Talk about these real quick. You guys have seen functions again in JavaScript. So here in Python, the syntax is a little bit different. Rather than the function keyword, we have the def keyword, and that signifies that we're going to be opening up a function. And then you open it up again with a colon. The parameters for a function are essentially the same as you've seen in JavaScript. And as you can see, once we open up the code block, we can do some things inside the body and then return something out of the function, just like we were doing in JavaScript.
Is it also like JavaScript script in the function unknown length, like a string or some kind of form of data? Can you leave the function like how do you like? So I'm stuck on a problem that I was saying. Like you like def add if you didn't know if, you have AB there, but what if it was like an unknown string that could be between 1 and 40 million characters? Would you just leave it open? Can you do that? Or
I'm still having some trouble following your question. Try that again.
sorry.
Sorry, that's all right.
This all kind of revolves around the same problem. All this, everything. So, I'm sorry. It might just be.
You trying to do some massive algorithm or something?
What's
going on?
Okay, but like you could define an empty array in JavaScript, right?
Yeah.
Can you do that still in Python?
Yes, absolutely. So we can set up an empty list. Let's do that. So let's just say my empty list equals like that. And then if we want to add some elements to that, rather than push, which we use in JavaScript, we use append.
I see. Okay.
So I'd say my empty list, and then append 5. Okay, now if I print it, I should see that inside there. There we go. Cool.
Answers my question. Incompleteness.
Okay, excellent. All right, so there's a little bit of talk here about parameters and arguments. So parameters are the things that we're actually taking in a function, and then the arguments are what we actually pass to the function when we actually invoke it. Okay, so down here we're invoking the say hi function with an argument of micro. Okay, and here we're invoking the say hi function with an argument. All right. Also, another thing that we have, which is also in JavaScript, is what's called default parameters. So I can put a value in the function that I want it to use as a default in case it's not actually passed to the function. So let's do an example of that. So def func, and then we'll say a equals 10. And then what I want to do is just print out a. Okay. So I can invoke my func with 20, and that would print 20 for me. What if I invoke it with nothing though? In that case, I should be okay. It's going to use my default value that I set up in there. So it should print out 10, right? Okay, so those are just default parameters. Kind of nice. Let's keep going here. Returning values. Okay. It's very important to remember the following. A function call is equal to whatever that function returns. So, so in our case, is our function actually returning anything? This little func that I just made here? I'm not returning anything, right? I'm just printing to the terminal. So in other words, if I set that, let's say I say x equals an invocation of func, and then I print type x, what's that going to give me? None type, right? Because the function didn't actually return anything, so there's nothing there. All right, let's keep going. Going back to the add function, returns the sum. Yes?
With default, the default parameters, what's the way the constructors, methods, and that? Or am I thinking about the different?
Not exactly the same. So in an overloaded version, you can have totally different versions of the function, right?
Mm.
So this is not that case because we have one version of the function,
Yeah.
but we're just providing some default arguments. That's all.
Okay. I thought it was great.
Yeah. Interesting idea, but yeah, not exactly the same concept, right? Cool. All right, so that's that. Those are functions. You guys will be using functions all over the place. There's a little section here on default parameters. We actually kind of already covered this, so I'm not going to spend a bunch of time on this. But that can be helpful when you know that somebody may invoke a function without any parameters, and you need to just give it some defaults. All right. Sorting. All right, now things got into some functions and so forth. Those are going to be the assignments you guys are going to do. Any questions on just the basics of Python? Because we covered a lot of ground, but you guys are going to be working with a lot of the same things that we just went over in your assignments. So I want to make sure that all basic types, numbers, strings, the composite types when we had lists and objects or dictionaries. That's where in Python. Any questions about iterating, looping through, conditionals, any of that stuff?
I have a general question. What would you like us to finish at?
Oh yeah, it's on the schedule. So here, let's take a look here. So the end of day goal for today is modular practice. And I know that might seem kind of far.
Super ambitious.
It's pretty ambitious, yeah.
So if we get through bubble sort, then is it best to skip over the optional for now, go to OOP?
Yeah, I would definitely say let's plan on skipping the optionals unless you're just way ahead, way ahead. If not, let's skip those guys because we're playing catch up. So the schedule, as I mentioned, is up on Mattermost. Make sure you guys, if for some reason you don't have it, just let me know. But I posted it there on, I think it was Sunday night. Mattermost, yeah, look for it there.
There's almost
or the one that always used email, so that I was confused. I got you now.
There's a Slack, right?
Yeah, but it's not for students.
Oh. It's for alumni?
Sorry. Huh?
It's for alumni?
No, it's for employees. Yeah, but but Mattermost is that's how we're communicating with students. So you are on there, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So yeah, one other thing about Mattermost too, if you guys are gonna miss a day, maybe you're not feeling well or something happened or whatever, just shoot me a message on Mattermost so that I can mark it as an excused absence. All right. And we'll probably do attendance for at least the next couple days while I get to know your names a little bit. But I'm going to be sitting like on the other side of the room because I'm teaching a big group of mean students, so I kind of want to be where they're at. If you guys need me, I am there and available all day long, so don't hesitate to come grab me. All right, and then we'll plan to meet up again at 3 o'clock just to talk about OOP. All right. Cool. See you guys in a bit.